The deafening explosion ripped through Alexander Kaine's penthouse office, shattering glass and tearing apart everything he'd built over the last decade. Blood streaming down his face, he staggered to the blown-out windows overlooking Manhattan, watching in horror as simultaneous explosions erupted across his other properties throughout the city. His empire, worth billions this morning, was literally going up in flames before his eyes. Someone had just tried to kill him and destroy everything he owned in one calculated strike. The question wasn't just who wanted him dead, but how he had survived when he clearly wasn't meant to. As emergency services wailed in the distance, Alexander's phone buzzed with an incoming call from an unknown number. His hands trembling, he answered to hear a digitally disguised voice. "This was just the beginning, Kaine. You took everything from me. Now I'll take everything from you, piece by piece, until you're begging for the mercy of death." The line went dead as his executive assistant burst through the debris-covered doorway, her face pale as she held up her tablet. "Alex, our stocks are in freefall. Someone's leaked documents claiming you've been embezzling for years. The SEC is already issuing statements. We're finished." His mind racing through possible enemies, Alexander barely registered the paramedic cleaning his wounds in the back of the ambulance, a woman with striking blue eyes and an expression that suggested she saw right through his carefully constructed facade. "You're lucky to be alive," she said, her voice cutting through his panic. "Though from that 1,000-yard stare, I'm guessing you don't feel very lucky right now." When their eyes met, something unexpected passed between them, a connection that momentarily made him forget the catastrophe unfolding around him. She studied his face with unusual intensity before asking, "Who would want to destroy you this badly, Mr. Kaine? If you're feeling invested in Alexander's mysterious attacker, hit that like button while we uncover who's behind this devastating plot." 6 months later, Alexander sat in a modest coffee shop, unrecognizable from the titan of industry who once graced magazine covers. His designer suits replaced by worn jeans and a simple Henley, he nursed an Americano while scanning job listings on a second-hand laptop. From $4.6 billion to bankruptcy proceedings in half a year, a record even by Wall Street standards. The coordinated attacks had been just the beginning. Every attempt to rebuild had been systematically sabotaged, every former ally had abandoned him, and the criminal investigations, though they'd found no evidence against him, had frozen what little assets remained. "Is this seat taken?" The familiar voice made him look up into those same striking blue eyes that had haunted his thoughts for months. Emma Rhodes, the paramedic who'd treated him on the worst day of his life, stood before him with 2 fresh coffees. "I've been looking for you. Following the spectacular fall of billionaires is your hobby?" Alexander replied with the sardonic humor he'd developed as his new armor. Emma's lips curved into a half-smile. "No, but investigating arson and targeted attacks is part of my other job." She slid an FBI badge across the table, watching his reaction carefully. "We believe whoever targeted you is connected to a series of attacks against other tech executives. I need your help, and you need mine, because they're not finished with you yet." Their unlikely partnership began that day, a ruined billionaire and an undercover agent posing as a paramedic, working together to uncover the identity of the shadow organization that had orchestrated Alexander's downfall. As they sifted through evidence in Emma's cramped apartment-turned-investigation headquarters, their initial wariness evolved into mutual respect, then something deeper neither was prepared to acknowledge. "Your security protocols were breached from the inside," Emma concluded one night, running her fingers through her silky hair in frustration. "Someone with intimate knowledge of your systems and schedule." Alexander paced the small living room, his proximity making her pulse quicken despite her professional resolve. "The only person with that level of access was my former CTO, Vincent Shaw. But he disappeared right before the attacks, presumed dead in a boating accident." Emma's eyes widened. What if his death was staged? What if, her theory was cut short by the crash of breaking glass as a canister rolled across the floor, immediately filling the apartment with dense smoke? "Get down," she shouted, drawing her weapon as shadows moved beyond the windows. This investigation is heating up. Double tap that like button if you're desperate to know if they'll escape this ambush, asterisk. Seconds before armed intruders burst through the door, Alexander pulled Emma through a hidden access panel in her bathroom wall, a safety measure she'd never revealed to him. In the tight confines of the building's maintenance shaft, their bodies pressed together in the darkness, breath mingling as footsteps and voices searched the apartment mere inches away. "You never mentioned this escape route," he whispered, his lips nearly brushing her ear. "You never mentioned you've been investigating Vincent on your own," she countered, feeling his body tense against hers. "I saw the files on your laptop, Alexander." The search party eventually departed, but the damage was done, their sanctuary compromised, their trust in each other shaken. In a cheap motel room paid for in cash later that night, they faced each other across an unbridgeable divide. "Vincent was more than my CTO," Alexander finally admitted, his voice hollow. "He was like a brother to me. We built everything together from our dorm room startup to Kaine Technologies. Then 6 months before the attacks, he changed, became secretive, hostile. When I confronted him, he accused me of stealing his breakthrough AI algorithm, claiming I'd built my billions on his work." Emma's expression hardened. "Did you?" His laugh was bitter. "That's the thing, I didn't need to steal it. I already owned it under our partnership agreement. But Vincent had a second, more advanced version he'd developed in secret. When I discovered it and realized its military applications, I refused to sell it to certain interested parties." Vincent disagreed vehemently. "So he orchestrated your downfall out of revenge," Emma concluded, "and now he's working with whoever wanted that technology." "It's worse than that," Alexander said, his voice dropping. "If I'm right about what his algorithm can do, we're talking about an AI weapon that could cripple national security systems. And I'm the only one who can identify the fatal flaw in its architecture." Before Emma could respond, her secure phone buzzed with an encrypted message. The color drained from her face as she read it. "They've found us. We have less than 3 minutes. Asterisk, is your heart racing yet? If you're on the edge of your seat, hit subscribe now so you don't miss what happens next in this high-stakes chase, asterisk." They barely escaped the motel before black SUVs surrounded it. What followed was 3 weeks of constant movement, staying one step ahead of Vincent's organization while gathering evidence and allies from Alexander's past. Through sleepless nights and tense days, the walls between them slowly crumbled. Emma revealed her own painful secret: her sister had been collateral damage in a corporate cyber attack 2 years earlier, driving Emma from regular FBI work into the specialized unit targeting tech-based terrorism. "Is that why you were investigating me?" Alexander asked as they shared a rare quiet moment on a train crossing state lines. "You thought I might be responsible for attacks like the one that killed her?" Emma's vulnerability in that moment, the sheen of tears she quickly blinked away, broke something open in Alexander's carefully guarded heart. "At first, yes. But the more I learned about you, the more I realized you were a target, not a perpetrator." Their hands found each other across the small table, fingers intertwining as the landscape blurred past them. "When this is over," he said softly, "if we survive." Emma silenced him with a gentle finger to his lips. "Don't make promises about after. There might not be an after for us." That night, in a safe house arranged by Emma's handler, the tension that had been building between them finally erupted. One moment they were arguing about their next move, the next Alexander had her pressed against the wall, their lips meeting in a kiss that contained all the fear, hope, and unspoken feelings they'd been carrying. But their moment of connection was shattered by an incoming alert on Emma's secure laptop. Vincent Shaw had surfaced, and he was auctioning the AI weapon to the highest bidder in 48 hours. They hatched a desperate plan. While Emma coordinated with her FBI team, Alexander would use himself as bait, reaching out to Vincent with a proposal he couldn't refuse: the missing piece of code that would make his AI weapon flawless. It was a dangerous gamble that relied entirely on Vincent's ego and greed outweighing his caution. The exchange was set for an abandoned tech campus Alexander once owned. As he walked alone into the cavernous main building, Emma and her tactical team monitored from hidden positions, ready to intervene. When Vincent finally appeared, very much alive, his face hardened by months of hatred, Alexander felt a complex surge of emotions for his former friend. "I knew you'd come crawling back eventually," Vincent sneered, circling Alexander like a predator. "Have you figured it out yet? How completely, thoroughly I've destroyed you?" "What I can't figure out is why," Alexander replied, maintaining his calm. "We could have negotiated rights to your algorithm. You didn't have to resort to terrorism." Vincent's laugh echoed through the empty building. "This was never about money or rights. This was about recognition. About stepping out from your shadow. Do you know what it's like to be the genius behind the throne while you took all the glory? All the magazine covers? All the accolades?" As Vincent ranted, revealing details of his crimes that were being recorded as evidence, Alexander caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of his eye, Emma, repositioning for a better angle. But in that split second of distraction, Vincent noticed his gaze shift and followed it. His expression transformed from triumph to rage. "You brought them with you," he snarled, drawing a weapon and firing wildly toward Emma's position. "You brought them. Can Alexander save Emma and stop Vincent's deadly plan? Comment below with your predictions while we continue this heart-stopping confrontation. Chaos erupted as Alexander tackled Vincent, both men crashing to the floor as FBI agents swarmed the building. In the struggle, Vincent's gun discharged again, and Alexander felt the searing pain of a bullet tearing through his shoulder. Through a haze of agony, he saw Emma running toward him, her weapon trained on Vincent, her expression a mixture of determination and terror. "It's over, Vincent," she commanded. "Drop the weapon or I will shoot." Vincent looked from Emma to Alexander, his face contorting with hatred. "It will never be over. Even if you stop me, the auction is already programmed to proceed automatically. In less than 12 hours, my algorithm will be in the hands of people who will bring this country to its knees." Despite his injury, Alexander pushed himself to his feet. "Unless they discover the fatal flaw in your code, the one you never found because you were too focused on the theoretical and not enough on the practical applications." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Vincent's face. "I can still fix this," Alexander continued, his voice strengthening despite the blood soaking his shirt. "Let me access your servers. I'll show you the flaw, and we can stop the auction together." What followed was a desperate race against time. With Vincent in custody but cooperating under the promise of leniency, Alexander worked feverishly to identify and neutralize the algorithm's automated auction. As the deadline approached, his strength flagging from blood loss and exhaustion, Emma remained by his side, keeping him focused, keeping him alive. "Stay with me," she urged when his eyes began to flutter closed, her hand gripping his. "I didn't track you down, get shot at, and fall in love with you just to lose you now." His eyes snapped open at her words. "What did you just say?" Emma's cheeks flushed, but she held his gaze. "You heard me. Now finish this so we can argue about my terrible timing later." With renewed determination, Alexander made the final keystrokes that disabled Vincent's auction system and embedded a virus that would render the algorithm useless even if copies existed elsewhere. As federal agents secured Vincent's servers, Emma finally allowed the medical team to take Alexander to the hospital, refusing to leave his side even as he was wheeled into surgery. 3 months later, Alexander stood on the balcony of a modest coastal home, watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and crimson. His shoulder had healed, but other scars remained, both visible and invisible. Vincent was facing multiple life sentences. The companies and fortune Alexander had built were gone, though he'd been formally cleared of all wrongdoing. Yet somehow, he felt richer than he'd ever been as a billionaire. The sound of the sliding door opening behind him brought a smile to his face before he even turned to see Emma joining him, 2 glasses of wine in hand. "Penny for your thoughts," she asked, handing him a glass and leaning against his good shoulder. Just thinking about how losing everything turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me, he replied, wrapping an arm around her waist. It stripped away all the distractions, all the false friends, all the trappings I thought were important. Emma tilted her face up to his. And it led me to you, he said simply, lowering his lips to hers as the last rays of sunlight gilded them in golden light. Their new life together was just beginning, built not on billions or power, but on the unshakable foundation of having faced the worst together and emerged stronger. Alexander had indeed lost everything, only to find what he never knew he needed, a love that no fortune could buy and no enemy could destroy. If this story of redemption and second chances touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that sometimes losing everything is just the beginning of finding what truly matters. Drop a comment letting us know what you thought of Alexander and Emma's journey from tragedy to triumph, *.